A four-wheel drive is so much more than just another car. On top of taking the kids to school, running to and from work and picking up some groceries, you're actually capable of getting out and seeing some amazing countryside, and they give you access to some incredible experiences.
We're in the middle of the Victorian High Country. This is a four-wheel drive mecca for adventurers from all over Australia. We're going to take you to some of our favourite parts of this magnificent area and show you just how far you can go in a stock standard 4x4.
When you're heading out camping, you don't want to be coming into town for supplies every day. You're not going to the cafe for breakfast. You need to load up on a lot of stuff. So there's 4 of us and we're going away for 4 days. And it's actually a lot of stuff you need to take. Breakfast, lunch, dinners, snacks, yada, yada, yada. You need a bit of storage. What we've done, installed some decked drawers into this Navara. And these things are pretty much like our pantry. All the stuff that doesn't need to get refrigerated are in those. And then up the top, I've got an ARB Elements fridge. It's a little bit hard to see, but it can live outside, no worries. It's actually lockable, which is cool. That thing's chock-a-block too, set to 2 degrees. Got some auxiliary power, so that will sort that out. Hopefully I can fit a few beers in there too. On this journey, we've got the CarAdvice owned Nissan Navara, which is fresh from some modifications. We've also got the brand new Suzuki Jimny with a manual gearbox and Holden's Trailblazer in Z71 specification. We're in Dargo, very pretty little town and the last chance to get supplies before you head up into the high country. So we've taken the chance to fill up a few jerry cans. 2 diesels, 1 per car here with diesel, and then 1 petrol for the little Jimny. We're not sure what conditions are going to be like when we get up there, so it's nice to have a little bit of extra up the sleeve, especially considering we don't have any long-range tanks fitted to these cars. Just a bit of water here. Obviously when you're camping you need to be fully self-sufficient, so 40 litres of water plus a fair few bottles for drinking. Should keep us out of trouble. We'll be camping on rivers as well a bit, so we can use that water for other stuff, but obviously drinking water is good to have all yourself. Yes. From Dargo, it's barely minutes until you've turned off the main roads and started on some steep and truly scenic four-wheel drive tracks. And for first timers, you'll quickly understand just how steep and rugged this country is by looking out at the view. Just come out on Collingwood Spur track out of Dargo and come out to a really nice clearing here. This is a pretty amazing view, but we're going to keep going. About another 3 k's down this hill, we're going to drop down towards where the Crooked River and Talbotville, the old mining town, is, and there's some apparently really good camping down there. Some old mining relics, a lot of river crossings as well. Get a little fire going, set up camp for the night and see what happens tomorrow as well. What goes up must come down, and after slowly climbing through the Grand Historic area, our descent down towards Talbotville begins, and it's into low-range four-wheel drive for the first time. It's all about going low and slow on big descents off-road, using as much compression braking as possible to take some strain off your brakes. And if you've got it, hill descent control can help as well. Take your time, choose your line wisely, and enjoy the view on the way down. Talbotville and the Crooked River area are chock full of river crossings. When we travelled through the area, the water level was quite low and not too challenging, but this does depend on the season when you travel. After winter or some heavy rain, you'll really need to be prepared for some challenging crossings.
Our first night we descended down into this area, Talbotville. This is a very old gold mining town, and right behind us here along the edge of this flat area there is a lot of man-made rock wall. This was quite a large town at the time, with a lot of people mining the river hoping to strike it lucky.
So we just recently fitted up these tyres to the Navara. Part of a few other things, there's some new suspension under there as well. And these are some dynamic steel wheels to help fit these tyres. They're a Toyo rugged terrain, which is halfway in between their all-terrain and their mud terrain. I think we've harped on about the benefits of a good off-road tyre quite a bit, but I'll say it again, this thing will make this Navara a lot better off-road. So this is a bit of a sort of a hybrid, what they call it. Not a supremely aggressive mud terrain for off-road, but will still give massive benefits. And we're actually doing some pretty steep climbing today. It's meant to be a bit slippery, a little bit rocky, and they have had some rain up here, so it should be a pretty good challenge. And really keen to see how these tyres go. Going down to 16 PSI with these tyres. I haven't driven on these off-road before, so this is the first time. It's a bit of weight in the back, so I'll see what the tyres look like, but 16 should be fine, I think. We'll see how they go, and if we need to adjust them, we can adjust them.
Standard Jimny comes with pretty much a road-based tyre. It's not really that good for off-roading, so again we've gone down to 16 PSI. That will give us a nice wide tread pattern and hopefully give us the grip to make some of the steep rocky ascents in this area.
This Trailblazer Z71 has some nice 18-inch black alloys as part of this option pack, but still the same tyres, so that's a pretty road-oriented tyre. We're going down to 16 PSI in the Trailblazer as well, which feels like a good starting point all round for the convoy. We're just at the start of the South Basalt Knob track in the High Country. I'm just looking at my map here, and you can see that just before we were crossing rivers right down to the bottom of the valley, but this is where it gets really steep. You can sort of see the lines on the map. This is a very steep climb for probably a few hundred meters, so it'll be quite challenging. Gets up towards a helipad at the top there. The basic fundamentals of hill climbs is the lowest gears you've got. Try to use those. Get your tyre pressure set already. This thing's set at 16 PSI, so that should be a good start for the little Jimny. But it's all about slow and steady movement, because you've got to keep a little bit of momentum, but you've got to go slow and read the track at the same time and pick your line pretty wisely, especially if there's a few ruts. So this thing doesn't have any locking differentials, but it does have an off-road traction control module, so this will be a really good test to see how that goes. The wheels of the Jimny are right at each corner of the vehicle, and that gives you great ground clearance and visibility, as well as confidence in choosing your line. But perhaps the best thing about this Jimny off-road is just the enjoyment and the engagement that you get out of it. It's a true enthusiast vehicle at a pretty sharp price of under 25,000 bucks. Pretty good challenge that first bit. You could see the wheels spinning as this thing started to articulate. The traction control did kick in pretty quickly though, so you didn't lose a lot of momentum. That means this thing's tuned pretty well, which is a great start. No locking diffs, but that kind of does make up for a lot of it. Not sure what it's like further on though, so we'll see what we're in for.
I'm in a standard spec Holden Trailblazer Z71 model, and I'm going to go in a manual gear of first gear and slowly crawl up this one. The Holden Trailblazer is no slouch off-road, and I was pleasantly surprised by the ability of the car to handle steep climbs and descents. The South Basalt Knob track is an impressive climb over loose rock and dirt, and the car handled it well.
We're using the South Basalt track to link up with the iconic and well-known Blue Rag Range track, which is further north. It's around a 35-kilometre drive, but the first few are where it's at its most interesting. The climb is very, very steep, with sharp switchbacks, rock steps and ruts to negotiate. If you're looking for something that is properly challenging, then this is going to be a great track. The beauty of the High Country is that if you're looking for something a little bit less challenging, then you've got a huge variety of options. Buy some maps and do your research before you head off. There is literally hundreds of tracks in the High Country and countless ways that you can choose to drive through it. This place would be really challenging in the wet, but in this really dry, powdery stuff, I'm actually running out of traction here a little bit, and the wheels were just starting to spin, so Rather than sitting there spinning your wheels, you need to stop, back up, have a look at the track, see what's going on. We've got some other options up the side here. It's very rocky though, so I might just try and adjust my line a little bit, pick something a bit different, adjust your momentum and just play around and see if you can just crawl up nice and easy. While the Jimny doesn't have the size or raw clearance that other larger four-wheel drives have, don't think for a second that this thing is not capable off-road. Its size and weight, combined with the good off-road suspension and sharp traction control, makes it very impressive on tricky, technical tracks. The CarAdvice Navara has been modified with a 2-inch Bilstein suspension kit, along with some more aggressive Toyo rubber. This extra clearance and traction means that we can take on some of the tougher tracks and lines that these areas have, and really put the Navara to the test. The Jimny and the Trailblazer both had a little bit of trouble there on this really steep and powdery section. We had to adjust the line a little bit to get it up there, used a little bit more momentum as well. But this Navara, it's got a rear locker, but it's got the better suspension, a bit more clearance, and these tyres which are a lot grippier. So it chose that harder line and it walked it pretty easy. The Blue Rag Range, 1700 metres above sea level at its highest, and it's not far from the little ski town of Mount Hotham. The track is mostly above the tree line, which affords you some incredible views of the steep and rugged countryside. The track does have its challenging spots, but is largely in good condition. There are some small spaces for camping along the Blue Rag track, and with blue skies and a light breeze on the forecast, we picked a scenic little spot to spend the night. If you can, take a chainsaw with you on your own high country trip. Along with helping to collect firewood, a chainsaw can help clear tracks a lot faster and a lot safer than other options. Of course, only pick up a chainsaw if you know how to operate one safely. We made camp last night in this really pretty little spot. We are up really high and it is a bit exposed. And one of those things about the high country is that conditions can change really quickly. You can look at your forecast, you can keep an eye on them, but they're never always correct. This sort of wind wasn't predicted. So what you need to do is just have a little bit of flexibility in your plans. Have a plan B, maybe a C and a D as well. What we're going to do is get off this mountain, head down into a valley, find a bit of protection, and maybe we can find a river and have a fish. After getting back off the Blue Rag track, we pointed our vehicles towards the Dinner Plain. This is accessible from the north near Hotham on the Dargo High Plains track.
We've come through Mount Hotham and turned right onto the Dinner Plain, and we were hoping to use the Mayford track to drop down to the Dargo River, where we're told there's some good trout fishing. But as you can see, this track has been closed for quite a while. So there's some important learnings there. One, make sure you do your research. And two, make sure you've built some flexibility into any journey. We've looked at the map and we know that this track does continue on and will pop out a bit further downstream on the Dargo River. So we're okay with that, and we're going to have some lunch and then head off.
For mapping on this trip, I've got HEMA maps on my phone, which is a pretty handy thing to have. You don't need to carry a navigator with you. You can have them all there. It's pretty good. However, I've got paper maps as well. Paper doesn't break down, paper doesn't need recharging. It's pretty handy. Using rooftops, and it's actually a really, really good map with a lot of detail. This actually has more up-to-date information, especially about this Mayford track, which we've found out is closed after we've turned up. And we've got some better information around how to link up with the Dargo Highlands Road a bit later, where we'll be heading probably tomorrow. So I would recommend these rooftop maps 100% for travelling through the high country. Plus, on this, the navigator is quite good too, but definitely double check on your paper maps.
We've just come down into the valley here. We've got the Dargo River running just behind us here. There's a few deep holes that hopefully we'll find some trout sitting in. It's not really the ideal season. That's usually September-ish, and that is when the water's a lot higher and the trout are moving more freely. But hopefully if we try a few of these deeper sections, we could come up lucky.
How good is cooking on the fire? I think everything tastes better when there's a bit of burning wood underneath it. Let's get the bad things out of the way first about this Jimny. It's a 3-star ANCAP safety rating, so it's not the safest car in the world. It's not the most refined either, and obviously with the size of it, you can't really fit much stuff in. There's room for a driver and 3 passengers, or a bit of camping gear in the back. With that out of the way, there is a lot to really love about this car. It's got this sense of excitement about it. It's an enthusiast car. You want to get in it and drive it, take it off-road, go exploring places. Could you live with it on a day-to-day basis, driving to and from work? I reckon absolutely you could. It's not as refined, it's not as safe, and it's probably not as efficient as other vehicles in this price range and in this size, obviously. Think about more traditional, more normal, small SUVs. But none of those things can come within a bull's roar of this thing off-road. It is properly capable.
Any family will find this a great SUV in and around town, but they'd be surprised to know just how far they can take it off-road. It has all the underpinnings of a good off-roading vehicle. If it was my personal driver though, I would add more capable off-road tyres and get a suspension upgrade, which will give it more ground clearance and take it from being a good off-roader to an extremely capable off-roader.
The basic modifications we've made to this Navara show why four-wheel drive utes are so popular these days in terms of outright sales and aftermarket modification. It's got a nice bump to the overall capability off-road and some great storage in the tub for all that gear you need when you head camping. It doesn't matter if you've only been once or you've been 100 times. The Victorian High Country is a very special place that really gets under your skin. It's the combination of great four-wheel drive tracks, unspoiled nature and incredible camping, whether that's on top of a mountain or down by a winding river. If you've got the keys to a four-wheel drive and some gear in the shed, then start planning your own high country adventure.